just taking that breath and settling in after the excitement, the sadness, the joy, everything that has come before. And what I'm supposed to be talking about today is when the comfort zone ends, transformation begins. When the comfort zone ends, transformation begins. What does that mean? So, the power of transformation in our life is like our willingness to step outside of that comfort zone. So when we're willing to move outside of the comfort zone, where it's lovely there, it's warm, it's cozy, right? We know what to expect. But then when we move outside of that comfort zone, as I talked last week about, for people who are here, I talked about the experiment with IBM, where they moved the top salespeople into the bottom salespeople's jobs and the bottom into the top. And the top people down at the bottom, of course, they rose right up. People who were in those lower levels, they ended up bringing those top sales positions down to where they were comfortable. So what is it then? So you can't just throw ourselves into that comfort zone. I think if we jump too far, then that will move down in. We'll just go back to what we were used to be doing. So what is that? There's fear. There could be resistance. So I was reminded of this little book. I don't know if anybody's read it. Who moved my cheese? Right? And the 4 little characters, the 2 mice, Scurry and I can't remember the exact names, and then they had the 2 other people that were, so there's 4 characters, and each character basically is an aspect of ourselves. Whether, we're the ones who are, it was Hem and Haw are the other 2, and there's Scurry and Hurry. And so Scurry and the other mice, what was the other mouse's name? Do you remember? No. So they would always go about and do things and get things done, because there was always the cheese, and they would know where it was. But if it wasn't there that day, they would, go off and try and find more cheese, because that's what they like to do. And as mice, they like to nibble on cheese all the time. But then Hem and Haw, because they had larger brains, they would think about all sorts of things. So they would hem and haw, they would go and find the cheese, and then they start to feel a little bit entitled that they deserve this cheese. And so when the cheese got moved, they were angry. They were like, what the heck? I've been doing this every day. I'm so comfortable in this place. And Hem and Haw would talk about what they should do, but meanwhile, every day they were getting hungrier and fainter and weaker and lower down because they weren't eating anything. So finally one day Haw said, Hem, we need to move out because they lived in a maze. We need to move out into the maze and find more cheese. And now this cheese is the capital C cheese. Okay? So capital C cheese, people are looking at me like, what is she talking about? But that is, if you imagine spirit, if you imagine success, if you imagine life, the big L life, that's what they were looking at. And that's what, when you say that big C cheese, what was it that they were looking for? They wanted those things in life, but they got so comfortable and afraid. Hem and Haw stayed starving themselves because they didn't want to go out into the maze and find something, until one day Haw got so uncomfortable that he couldn't do it. He couldn't stay stuck in, I think it's called Cheese Room C, and he needed to move out of Cheese Room C into something else. So he decided to leave. He tried to talk Hem into going with them, and Hem was like, I'm not going. I deserve to get that cheese, and that cheese just better be delivered to me right here, right now. And it never did. So, but Haw said, I can't do that. I've got to get out there. And the thing that Haw discovered when he was out looking for the cheese is that he found his purpose. He found enjoyment again. He found that excitement, that thrill that brought him through. So he wrote down rules for living. And he was hoping, because he'd left little trails in case Hem decided to to stop hemming himself in and to move out into the world. So he left him little notes. He said, change happens. That's they keep moving the cheese. But then he said, anticipate change. Get ready for the cheese to move. Monitor change. Smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old. Right? Adapt to change quickly. The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you can enjoy new cheese. Change. Move with the cheese. Enjoy change. Savor the adventure and enjoy the taste. And then his last one is be ready to change quickly and enjoy it again and again. But isn't that life? Right? Change happens. What do they say? The only thing that's ever inevitable is change. Oh, and taxes. Oh, and death. Okay, there's a few of them. But that's the thing. We know these things are going to happen. And what Ha said to himself here, he said he had to admit that the biggest inhibitor to change was that change lies within yourself. That's the thing that stops us. And that nothing gets better until I change, until I take that step outside of the comfort zone and try something new. Until I take that other step and again, maybe just push that boundary just that little bit more. Because that's what we do. We put ourselves in these boundaries, in these boxes. And we don't let our light shine. We stop ourselves. Ernest Holmes says about fear, he says, fear brings limitation and lack in its wake and destroys the happiness and possibility of a greater degree of livingness to those who suffer from it. Fear blocks the more complicated givingness of the spirit to its highest form of manifestation in this planet, which is humankind. That's in the Science of Mind textbook on page 404 in the print version. So the role of fear and resistance is we have to let those fears go because they act as that barrier to our personal growth. And when we step outside, each time we do something, we're like, oh, I can do that. Oh, that's okay. Maybe I'll try going over here. Oh yeah, that's good. I can do that. You know, I had a really great example of this yesterday. I've been known to maybe push the envelope on timing sometimes a little bit. You know, maybe be late here or there. So yesterday morning I had some work I needed to get done, and then I decided, and I had booked to go to Nanaimo for the day. So I booked the fast ferry, needed to be there at 5 minutes before 9. So I timed it all out, got my husband to drive me to New West to get the SkyTrain, and I'm watching the Google thing go, oh, you're going to arrive at, it was first 8:45. Perfect, 15 minutes, I got enough time. Then it went to 8:50. Then it went to 8:55. And then it went to 9:01. And I'm like, oh, I was having a panic attack. So I'm sitting on this SkyTrain, sweating, get off at Burrard Street and have to run down to Canada Place. Okay, I am not really in the greatest shape of my life at the moment. I had my backpack, my thing on. By the time I got down to Canada Place, I was soaking wet. And the ferry was right there, and I saw this other lady booking it with me, so her and I are running along. And then the next thing, the guy stops us because the gate's closed. And the ferry's there. They haven't undone the things. They haven't done anything. They said, no, we have a hard stop at 5 minutes to. We cannot let you on the ferry. She's crying. I'm like feeling sick. And very warm. And, you know, so we're like, okay, now what do I do? Here I'd booked this day, so I've just blown off, we won't say how much money I've blown off already. And then it's like, well, what do I want? What is my intention for the day? Like I was going to see 2 dear friends that I did ministerial training with. So I'm like, I still wanted to see them because I didn't know the next time I was going to be able to. One's in from Edmonton. One lives over on the island. So I'm like, okay, go into motion, Tamara. What can I do? What can I do? Spirit, guide me through. So then I look over and see Harbor Air. I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this. Go over to Harbor Air. She goes, oh, you just missed the plane. It just left. It hadn't left, but they said we have a hard stop 15 minutes before. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I check another one. And anyway, so the girl goes, well, you know what? You can check with Helijet, and they're just over on the other side. And so I'm like, oh, a helicopter. Could I do that? No, that's ridiculous. How am I going to show up on the island flying in on a helicopter? My gosh, who do I think I am doing that? Okay, so these stories are going through, right? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell my husband that I'm spending this extra money doing this thing? So of course I call him and I'm like, what do you think I should do? And how do you think? And then he says, well, call them, see if they have a flight. So they had a flight at 10:30. They said, oh, and we happen to have a seat sale. I'm like, yes. So, and meanwhile, on my bucket list is to fly in a helicopter. So I thought about it and went, okay, you know what? Am I going to go into that fear of lack and judgment about what has happened, or am I going to step into the possibility of what I can create today? And it took me a little bit to get there, because I had to walk from Canada Place all the way over to the other side, still thinking about it. And I decided, no, I'm going to do this. I mean, actually, there's the bright side. I'm checking a couple things off. I'm getting to hang out with friends I don't get to see very, very rarely. And I get to knock one thing off my bucket list. So it was a no-brainer. Though, my husband said I'm not allowed Starbucks for another 2 months. But I said, that's okay. I can live with that. But that's that whole piece, right? I could have stopped myself and judged myself so harshly, like, oh my gosh, Tamara, why didn't you just leave 5 minutes early? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And I mean, trust me, I did go through all that, but at the end of the day, I moved through it. I listened to the guidance and I stepped in and looked at the different possibilities. And too, getting on that helicopter, that was the fear right there. I'm like, oh my gosh. Backstory, and this is I did have a cousin who was killed in a helicopter. He was a pilot and it crashed. So there was that fear, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can never tell my mom that I'm getting on this helicopter. These fears, but it was like, okay, no, what is most important? So I kept putting that first of what I wanted to experience, what was my intention. And I moved through it. And let me tell you, riding in a helicopter, when you go to Playland and the kids ride, they have that little helicopter ride that goes up and down. Actually, it was pretty much just like that. So I was very happy that it wasn't too crazy. And it was amazing because you fly low and you could see the water, and I kept going, Q whales, but no whale showed up, unfortunately. So, but it was still good. I got there in 18 minutes, so I actually beat the ferry. So, which was great, and going forward. So that was an example of pushing through that fear. So then what else? And two, I had to expand my boundaries, and I got to embrace a new experience. So that's the thing, it's spreading out those boundaries, because our comfort zone, imagine it's like a little square box. So I just almost made a rectangle yesterday with that, of stepping outside of it. And it increased my self-confidence. I knew I could run 4 blocks, which I didn't know I could do. And I was able to get into that problem-solving skill. I was able to come up with another idea. And so it's when I could have kept in with my limiting beliefs. And a limiting belief is a thought or a state of mind that you think is the absolute truth and stops you from doing things. So, right, there's a couple limiting beliefs I've had. I don't have enough money. Who do I think I am? What's it going to be like flying on a helicopter? And 2, I was the only one on the helicopter, so it was kind of like a private ride. So I did feel like a little bit of a rock star. But it is getting through those beliefs, those thoughts about and how I can change my life and how I can move through those and create self-awareness about those thoughts that I have. So it's forming healthy relationships or creating change in any area of my life. I have to think about, okay, what am I really thinking? Because what do we say here in Science of Mind? What we think, there's change your thought, change your life, but what we think persists, what we resist persists. Right? So it's moving past those limiting thoughts. And they sometimes, those limiting thoughts, you know what, they've maybe kept us safe at some point. They acted as a defense mechanism to protect ourselves from pain. And our subconscious might remember a negative experience and try and prevent you from hurting yourself again. So those subconscious boundaries can lead to negative emotions, like anxiety, procrastination. Oh, that never happens to me, right? There's all those things. So it's about moving through those limiting beliefs and know that we can change them. And it just start with one. We can start with one. And in this Who Moved the Cheese, he asked the question, like, what would it be like if we weren't afraid? Right? What would it be like if we weren't afraid? What would we do differently? So with that, we need to overcome those limiting beliefs and those self-imposed boundaries and think about what are ways that we can move through it. And that is, again, change your thinking, change your life. We can start small. We can do prayer. We can practice our meditation. We can listen for that divine guidance. There's all those things. And I know I was talking to another friend this week, and she went to the island as well. But she was delivering a workshop. And she hasn't done this in a long time. So she went over to deliver this workshop. She wasn't exactly sure how it's going to go. She hasn't presented in person for a long time. She's used to writing, not presenting. And it went amazingly well. She had a great turnout. There was a great support group from behind her that they even though they knew everything that she was presenting, they still came and supported her. So she felt totally loved up in that moment and fully supported. But she said it was so scary taking that first step to say, yes, I can do this workshop. Even though she's got a PhD and she's got all the training in behind her, but it's that fear that stops us sometimes. So how do we move past those things? So there's a few things that we can do. We can embrace the discomfort and recognize that growth often lies beyond the boundaries of our comfort zone. So embracing the discomfort as that catalyst for change, that catalyst for personal evolution, and push beyond those self-imposed limitations. 2, we can explore our spiritual tools and practices. We can engage in spiritual tools and practices that support our journey. We can cultivate mindfulness through meditation, affirmations, visualization. We can incorporate journaling and self-reflection to gain a deeper self-awareness. We can take inspired action. We can set intentions, right? We can take inspired action towards stepping outside of our comfort zone. Identify a specific area and activities that make you feel hesitant and uncomfortable and make a conscious effort to engage in it. Right? There could be one of those things. It could be something just small and just move through it. Now this one is an interesting one. How about if we embrace failure? If we embrace failure as learning. Camera turned off? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Zoom people, you'll just have to hear me. We had a little battery issue in the background. We can look over that way. I'm just about done, so we're good. Thank goodness. But it's embracing failure as learning. Understand that setbacks and failures are natural part of the growth process. Right? So it is that natural part of us that we go through. Sometimes we're going to try something and it's not going to work out. But do we give up? Some, yes. But really, is that going to get you to what you want? If you keep going back to that intention, what is it that I really want? What is it that I desire? And it doesn't have to be material things. It's just about, I want more peace. I want more joy. I want more love in my life. And then, you know what, this is one I think that a lot of us forget to do, is to celebrate our victories. How often do we forget, hey, I just did this really great thing over here. I just, did that. But we so easily forget those good things and step into that old story of, oh, right? I can't let God take over. Let's just surrender it all. I can't do it. But just recognize the courage and the effort that you've done, that you've invested, and celebrating your victories increase your positive reinforcement needed to keep you pushing the boundaries and living a life of expansion. And that's what it's about. So, homework. Yeah. What are some strategies and techniques for managing fear and embracing discomfort as a necessary part of the growth process? What could each of you do today to embrace that? Come up with a strategy. Then ask yourself, what are examples of times you've stepped outside of your comfort zone and accomplished a goal? Pat yourself on the back for that. Take time to realize, hey, I've done this before. And then start looking and seeing if there's an area of your life that you want to improve, and what are those limiting beliefs that are holding you back. Think about those. And, by what those limiting beliefs that may be holding you back from stepping outside of your comfort zone and embracing an expanded life. And just take it and say, okay, so I believe I don't have enough money. So if we say that into the law, as Diane pointed out in her treatment this morning, right? We put it into the law. It says yes. So if I believe I don't have enough money, guess what happens? I don't have enough money. If I believe that I'm an abundant expression of that divine universe and I know it, I feel it, I express it, guess what I get back? Yes. I get that yes that Diane talked about. I get that yes. And trust me, it's not easy to do this all the time. I get it. Well, it can be. It depends again on our mindset. Is that a limiting belief? This is hard work. Or is this easy? Can I make shifts in my life? And can I recognize those shifts and celebrate them when I'm doing it? So let's take this into prayer. Knowing that there is one life, one love, that universal creative spark that is operating right here, right now, in, through, and as each of us. So today I claim the joy, the excitement, the expression of having my cheese moved and going after that new piece of cheese, that new expression of spirit. I know it. It is always there for me. Life is for me. And as I know that it is for me, I know it is for each of you listening today. I know that life is expressing through me, that capital L life. That I know that I am spirit having this human experience. So if I tap in and listen to that divine wisdom, that guidance that is in each of us, and allow that to direct me and set me on that road, that path, I know the demonstrations will come. I know that life is good. So as I express my life today, as I know each of you express your life, I claim that good for myself and for each of you. I claim that joy and a love, and I claim moving through and letting go of the fear, of the worry, concern, and I step in to faith. I step into my faith. I know it to be true, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity, for this time, for the love that is expressing through me today and through each of you. So I let these words go to that law that says yes, and know it is so, and ask you to join me in saying, and so it is.